For today's video, we will talk about computer fundamentals, the definition of computer, basic types of computers, and generations of computers.
Every single day, I'm gonna make something great. That's my way. Every single
Consider the sentence, computers are everywhere. Does it sound like an overstatement? A clutch? No matter how you perceive the impact of computers, the statement is true. Computers are everywhere. In fact, you can find them in some pretty unlikely places, including your family car, your home appliances, and even your alarm clock. In the past 2 decades, computers have reshaped our lives at home, work, and school. The vast majority of businesses now use computerized equipment in some way, and most companies are networked both internally and externally. More than half of all homes in the United States have at least one computer, and most of them are connected to the internet. Workers who once had little use for technology now interact with computers almost every minute of the workday. In basic terms, a computer is an electronic device that processes data, converting it into information that is useful to people. Any computer, regardless of its type, is controlled by programmed instructions which give the machine a purpose and tell it what to do. In 1640, the term computer was initially referred to as one who calculates. Later, in 1897, it was called the calculating machine. In 1945, it was indicated as programmable digital electronic computer, which is now called a computer. There are two basic types of computers. First, analog computers. A lesser-known type of a computer is the analog computer, which works in a very different way from digital computers. It represents data as variable points along a continuous spectrum of values. Early analog computers were mechanical devices, weighing several tools and using motors and gears to perform calculations. Next, we have digital computers. Digital computers work in very strict sequence of steps, processing each unit of information individually according to the highly organized instructions they must follow. This is the type of computer that is used to process information with quantities using digits, usually using the binary number system. Technology is just growing and growing, and when you think about the time that humans have been around, it's really happened in such a minuscule time period. Experts say that there are 5 generations, which means there have been 5 time periods during which computer science has taken a big leap in its technological development. The first generation began in the 1940s, and they go all the way up through today. First generation started with vacuum tubes. These were widely used in the first computer systems for circuitry, while magnetic drums were used for memory. As you're most likely aware, these first computers were huge and would quite often take up an entire room. Not only this, they were expensive to run, used a lot of electricity, and were limited to what they could do. They certainly couldn't multitask, that was for sure. In a sense, these machines were just giant calculators. Next, we have the second generation. There was the introduction of transistors, which came in to replace vacuum tubes. The creation came about at Bell Labs in 1947, although they weren't commonly used in computers until the late 1950s. Not only were transistors smaller, but they were also cheaper to build, more energy efficient, and work at a faster speed. Their only downside was that they generated a lot of heat, which could cause damage to the computer. However, it was still a great improvement of its predecessor. Third generation computers were where we saw the introduction of integrated circuits, or IC, which are still in use today. These reduce the size of the computer even more than the second generation and, again, speed things up. The first two generations relied on punch cards and printouts, whereas now we finally start seeing keyboards and monitors that are interfaced with an operating system. Thanks to these advances and a central program to monitor memory, computer devices could now run multiple applications at once. In the fourth generation of computers, the invention of the microprocessor helped to get computers to the desk and later lap size that we still know and use today. In 1981, we saw the first home computers brought to us by IBM, and in 1984, the first Apple Macintosh was introduced. Over time, these small computers became more powerful, and before long, the internet was developed. Not only do we have monitors and keyboards this time, but also mice and eventually handheld devices like cell phones. Although we are still using technology from the fourth generation of information technology, we are now going into a new age, the fifth generation. The biggest thing to date is the introduction of artificial intelligence and features such as Apple Siri or Amazon's Alexa. AI is constantly adapting and moving forward is expected to become more tailored towards individual business needs. All modern computers and computing devices use microprocessors whose speeds and storage capacities are skyrocketing day by day. The developmental benchmark for computers is now their size. Computers are now classified on the basis of their use or size. We have desktop, laptop, tablet, server, mainframe, and supercomputer. Desktop computers are personal computers designed for use by an individual at a fixed location. IBM was the first computer to introduce and popularize use of desktops. A desktop unit typically has a CPU or central processing unit, monitor, keyboard, and mouse. Introduction of desktops popularized use of computers among common people as it was compact and affordable. Riding on the wave of desktop's popularity, many software and hardware devices were developed, especially for the home or office user. The foremost design consideration here was friendliness. Next, we have laptop. Despite its huge popularity, desktops give way to a more compact and portable personal computer called laptop in 2000. Laptops are also called notebook computers or simply notebooks. Laptops run using batteries and connect to networks using Wi-Fi or wireless fidelity chips. They also have chips for energy efficiency so that they can conserve power whenever possible and have a longer life. Modern laptops have enough processing power and storage capacity to be used for all office work, website designing, software development, and even audio or video editing. Next, tablet. After laptops, computers were further miniaturized to develop machines that have processing power of a desktop but are small enough to be held in one's palm. Tablets have touch-sensitive screen of typically 5 to 10 inches where one finger is used to touch icons and invoke applications. Keyboard is also displayed virtually whenever required and used with touch strokes. Applications that run on tablets are called apps. They use operating systems by Microsoft Windows 8 and later versions or Google or Android. Apple computers have developed their own tablet called iPad, which uses a proprietary OS called iOS. Next, we have mainframe. Mainframes are computers used by organizations like banks, airlines, and railways to handle millions and trillions of online transactions per second. Important features of mainframes are big in size, 100 times faster than servers, typically 100 megabytes per second, very expensive, use proprietary OS provided by the manufacturers, inbuilt hardware, software, and firmware security features. Next, we have supercomputer. Supercomputers are the fastest computers on Earth. They are used for carrying out complex, fast, and time-intensive calculations for scientific and engineering applications. Supercomputer speed or performance is measured in teraflops. Most common uses of supercomputers include molecular mapping and research, weather forecasting, environmental research, oil and gas exploration. So kaning nasa picture kay mo na siya ang Chinese supercomputer Sunway Taihu-Lite. It is the world's fastest supercomputer with a rating of 93 petaflops per second.